Hey, so welcome. I am so glad to have Tim Spooner, CEO, founder, president of Spooner PT, here with us on the Focus Forward Business podcast. I am Sturdy McKee, business coach and advisor, and your host for the Focus Forward Business podcast. Thanks for being here, Tim.
Thank you, Sturdy. It's always a pleasure to see you and also to associate with other business owners and people interested in not only how business runs, but how they can progress their business.
Well, yeah, thank you. I love that. So will you tell our listeners who you are, a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, formerly trained as a physical therapist. I started Spooner Physical Therapy 30 years ago, and we have grown now into a 22 location practice here in the Phoenix metropolitan area in Arizona. And we have, over 140 providers. And we take care of everything. We have specialists on everything from hands to women's health, breast cancer, pediatrics, you name it. Sports and ortho, obviously, is a big part of what we do as well. So we take care of our communities, and we've always tried to focus on that and then help light the fire and the passion of the therapists that work for us, and really what they want to be great at.
Cool. So how did you get started in business, and was Spooner PT your first business?
First formal business, yes. I did some contracting and some other things as an independent contractor, but in terms of running a full-fledged business, Spooner PT was my first business, and I got started having worked in the healthcare just a brief time for about 4 years, and realized that I wanted to deliver a different level of customer service, a different level of experience for the patient. And I want people to be treated how I would want to be treated. So we founded and started that way. And as our company grew, it's just become a very key part of our fabric and of our culture.
Cool. So you told us why you decided, but do you wish you had done anything differently at all in the beginning?
That's a great question. It's when you look at hindsight, you realize the mistakes you made. That's an obvious one.
Sure.
I don't think you can ever be fully prepared. Or if you are fully prepared, you're probably too hesitant and missed your opportunity. And so I don't regret anything that we've done. I would have probably, been a little bit more aggressive in possibly in pursuing, different avenues of growth as a profession. But you can only grow, I guess, is to what your skills are. And, my first and foremost is I was a clinician. So I was in the clinic all day long. So growing the business was always tough in the beginning.
Sure. So how did you make a transition into working on the business?
Well, first of all, I'm surrounded by great people, and as I empowered them to grow, they kind of took over a lot of things I was doing and forced me to grow. As the business grows, you need to develop a different skill set, things that I was not well versed in terms of communication, technology, how to run and empower people. Those were things that I was really good at running myself, but not necessarily running a team. And so there was a lot of things that I had to learn in order to grow and perpetuate the company.
So beyond just skills acquisition, was there any change or transformation in how you viewed yourself and your role as things evolved?
Yes. Obviously.
Can you tell us about that? Sure. I'm not sure that's obvious to everybody, so I'd love for you to expand on this.
When you all of a sudden have 50 people under you, or 100 people, or in this case now we're at 350, they expect me to make good decisions for their well-being, for their livelihood. So I could be selfish and see 15, 20 patients a day, which gave me satisfaction, but I needed to make decisions that impacted not only the 300 people plus that work for us, but the thousands of patients that we take care of as well. And so once I started to make that transition, it became more about helping them and growing them, and which challenged me to get outside of my box, my comfort zone, into working with other business leaders and stuff in the community.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, are different stages, right, listening to this, and you've been at these different stages. I've experienced quite a number of them. What advice would you give a business owner who's currently struggling with not having enough time to spend on the business?
To spend on the business,
To spend working on the business.
Yeah, it's if you never time to spend on the business, you'll always be challenged. And the funny thing is that from when I started to now, there's no change in time. Time is a finite quantity, and it is a quantity of that leaves us as soon as as soon as it appears. So you have to take advantage of that, and I think it's really important. And some people say, well, grow, 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 and that's not always for everyone. I think that's important for people to say, look, if you've got a great practice and you're earning the living you want to make and having the lifestyle you want to live, and it works for you, then great. Not every company or every person is built to scale to one of these large entities that are out there.
Well, so we were talking a little bit earlier about one of the challenges for many business owners right now is the spending on healthcare. If it's not top of mind, it's up there on the list somewhere. Can you maybe share with the non-PTs what they might be able to do around that? How they might, I know you're an expert, you deal with this stuff, so.
Sure. Yeah, great question. And it truly is. If, it is normally a top 3 to 5 on your P&L. People always talk about their employees being the most important asset they have, and that's very true. And they have maintenance programs for their facilities, for IT. But what do they have for their human capital? What's their maintenance program for that? What are they doing? And if we think the little card that we get from our insurance carrier is healthcare, we're sadly mistaken.
Right.
That is a piece of plastic that allows a transaction to occur. And a lot of times it's a very inefficient, costly, and wasteful transaction. And I would empower any business owner to start asking questions and network with those around that are doing really great things in healthcare by asking questions of, why does this cost so much? How much is this going to cost? Where do I get the best value? And when we start asking questions where we get the right care at the right time with the right clinician, we're going to get the right value. And business owners can do this any day, all day. They may not think they're in the healthcare business, but if you're self-insured, I can guarantee you're in the healthcare in business. And even if your business is growing, you're probably seeing those premiums rise at a very steady rate. And you can look at the earnings over the last 2 quarters for the major insurers and see the absolute millions of dollars that they're taking in and not spending because people aren't going to the doctor. And realize, what should we do about this? Why are my premiums continuing to go up? And then for the therapists that are listening to realize, wow, here's the best opportunity of our lifetime to make a difference. Because one of the number one spends in group health, and certainly the number one in workman's comp, is musculoskeletal dysfunction.
Right.
And we're the experts for that. So why shouldn't we be front and center with a solution for your employers to do that? And that's one of the things that that we have a solution. We have a joint venture with a company called Solve Global, which is a national entity, and we are working with employers literally around the country now to provide MSD solutions. Very fun.
What about you brought up the point of the insurance card and then people entering that system and what have you. That's kind of after the fact, right? That's after somebody's hurt. That's after something's gone wrong or they suspect something is. What about the prevention side of things?
And that's where we as therapists should be working. We're the biomechanical experts and movement specialists in the medical community. So this is really our wheelhouse. Everyone else wants to do a more expensive and costly procedure.
Right.
We want to do more. We want to take more pictures of things. We want to prescribe biochemical solutions for a biomechanical problem. Even after surgical interventions, and there's still going to be surgery, we should have a more efficient way of getting these people in and out of rehab. Because today's big topic is the pandemic. Well, let's be real. We have had an opioid pandemic for the last 15, 20 years that has killed way more people. And if you don't believe me, start looking at the statistics. And it affects any and all walks of life. And, because it really doesn't behoove or doesn't matter where you live or what you do. It affects. I mean, we've lost a kid at our high school every year the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I guess going back to that idea of if you are a business owner and you're self-insured, it doesn't matter if it's work comp or they get hurt on the softball field and the insurance companies aren't going to solve a problem up front and try to help you prevent those kinds of injuries either. So they're
not incentivized or aligned to help save money. And that's why when a business owner asks questions of why, they're going to start realizing who's on the right side of change and who's on the wrong side of change. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah.
I love it. And I mean,
that's you're just making point.
Well, and you're making me think further too, that if you are listening to this and you have a self-funded plan, you're funding your own healthcare for your employees, insurance. That insurance really, Blue Shield, Cigna, whoever might be managing that is really a third-party administrator at this point.
That's all they are.
So their incentives are to do transactions because usually that's how they end up getting paid. So think about that system.
Well, we look at actually they get paid by charging. Right. That's their income, and their spread is on how long they can keep it and how much they pay to providers. There's a lot of waste out there. When you look at the MSD industry in America, it's a $700 billion industry, and they estimate 25 to 45% of its waste.
Well, I was just talking with a friend this weekend, and I followed up, and I think Dave Chase put out an article that if you're upset about the spend on healthcare, understand they're always trying to vilify the providers, the physicians, the surgeons, PTs, whoever. The provider ends up with less than 30% of the money you're spending.
That is
okay.
Spot on.
And that's right. And that kind of, it just brought it home, right? And that doesn't mean in the provider's pocket. That means like to the private practices and the practices and stuff, which still have administrative fees and overhead and the rest of it. So the end deliverer of the care is getting a tiny, tiny fraction of what you're spending. So maybe contract directly. Okay, that's our soapbox for today, right?
That's a great solution. Throw it out there.
Cool. So Tim, going back to your story, what's your proudest moment in business?
Part of it is I think my proudest moment is yet to come. We are aligning ourselves to be a disruptor in the healthcare industry and to really differentiate ourselves as a value provider in technically a profession that's become commoditized, and everyone thinks PT is PT and it provides the same value, and it doesn't.
That always fascinates me. People will brag about their accountant or their lawyer and how much they pay and who they are and how skilled they are, but they don't really know how to select a physician or a therapist or somebody. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not the same. People come with different skill sets and expertise and levels of learning.
Well, I think it becomes harder to find that profession or that professional, excuse me, when they're hidden behind a huge corporate shield.
Sure.
There's a very high satisfaction in the physical therapy, patient population, but there's a very, very low patient loyalty in the same breath.
Right. Right.
And as such, it's like, well, why is that? And they may have had a great experience, but didn't see the value. I mean, you don't know. It deserves more. It deserves more research and certainly more discussion to elevate that value, because that's ultimately how we're going to lift part of the ceiling that has been placed upon us by payers, by health insurance companies, and allow therapists to earn a more substantial living.
You're making me think back to days when I was practicing, and people would say, and this is going to be applicable for all business owners, people would say, yeah, I've been to PT before. Oh, when was that? 2 years ago. Where down the street, around the corner, whatever. Who did you see? Yep. Oh, I don't know, but she was really nice.
Yep.
Right. And it's like this personal brand. Give them your card, correspond, contact information, follow up. You wouldn't dream of, using a professional that your commoditization comment just really hits a nerve, because people come in and don't even know a therapist's name necessarily, and then trust that everything's going to be fine. And you wouldn't do that with an attorney, an accountant, you don't switch an engineer.
You don't switch dentists every year. You don't switch accountants every year.
Right.
There's a trust and a loyalty that you should be building up year over year and over time. And I think the key for our profession is to make sure that you're in an environment where you're allowed to do that, where you're incentivized, encouraged to do that. Yeah. Which is, it sounds simple, but take care of your community.
Sure. And that makes me think of one of the old McKinsey things of you train, I think it was them, but what if we train everybody really well and build them up and they leave? And, the counter to that is, what if we don't train them and don't grow them and they stay? Right?
Yes.
So cool. So how about this? What's the biggest thing you learned recently that you wish you had known 10 or 20 years ago?
For me, it's probably, knowing that I've always known that my growth occurs outside my comfort zone. But I didn't realize how many opportunities also appeared outside that comfort zone. And in really getting into and understanding what direct contracting can mean and how much value we can provide to employers. Now, 15 years ago, I don't know if it would have been possible to even have this subject, have the discussion. There has certainly been a groundswell, over the last, say, 5-10 years with, people like Dave Chase and Health Rosetta, the Free Market Medical Association. Lots of people have been growing and developing things. And now it's time for us individual providers to quit whining about what the insurance reimbursement is and actually go out and take control of the people that really need to see us, which are everywhere, and make it easy for them to access our services.
Right. And it's likely, this is another one for the providers particularly. Again, this was 5 years ago or so, but even at that time, Cigna particularly had done a lot of work in this area, and they were bragging about the number of their insureds that weren't really insureds. They were administrating for, and it was something like 70% of the companies they had under, as clients were self-insured actually, and they were acting as this third-party administrator thing. So there's a huge number way
Yeah.
more than I think we appreciate, of companies out there that are self-funded. And, this would appeal to them greatly. I would hope you
Sure.
can get their costs way down. Yeah, that's
And you can
cool.
look and if you want to make a fundamental difference in the area you live and work in,
Mm,
school districts are generally self-funded. Your
mm,
municipalities are self-funded. Your police departments, your fire departments, these are people that you probably see ones and twosies from. But what if
right.
you took care of the whole 4,000 people? And now we have to think in terms a little bit more of population management.
Mhm.
And how does a physical therapist, a movement specialist, someone who has the skills to do that and be able to administer that, how does that work within the system? And that's, to me, that is, if you can't get excited about that, you're in the wrong profession, I think, because that to me is the most exciting thing we've done in the last 30 years.
Well, there are a lot of ways to start approaching that and doing that. That's something I'm working with clients on, as well as reimagining what their business is. So beyond, and not doing away with what it currently is, but reimagining what else it could be, because again, not getting away from that transactional patient care piece of things, but not just doing that necessarily.
Correct.
There's so many other ways to bring value. And again, for anybody out there, if you think about the core thing that you do, are there other things that your target customer needs?
Yeah.
Other things that you could get involved with there. That's great.
And how can you work upstream to prevent some of those that you mentioned earlier?
Sure.
Because if you have a mechanism to be in touch with them, communicate with them, you have a tool and a strategy that allows that, then you can keep people healthy and keep them from breaking down too. And that in today's day and age and in the aging workforce of America is really critical.
Well, it's amazing we haven't, just as a society, spent more time and effort, energy on the prevention on the front end side of things. We've
Uh,
gotten really good at the back end, right?
Well, I don't disagree with that. We haven't gotten good at that either. Medicine is very good at acute injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
You break your knee, you break your leg. They can go in and fix it. It'll heal. Mother Nature's been doing that for a while, and we rehab that, and you're back on your merry way. That part of medicine does very good, but in the cumulative trauma, there is no definitive, consistent thought pattern. If you take, say, plantar fasciitis, something that pretty much anybody over 40 is going to get at some time in their life, and the variety of treatments that are tried and attempted don't even
Yeah.
look at the biomechanical cause, nor do people really understand why did that poor little piece of tissue break down.
Right. Right. So coming at it from the right way too. Well, cool.
Yeah.
So will you share with us maybe your favorite business book or one that you're reading now? See them
Boy.
on the
Yeah.
shelf.
Yeah.
If you just pick two, maybe.
Yeah.
Three.
I think there's a couple of them. Leadership and Self-Deception was one of my favorites. It really was a key thing for me to understand my impact on a room and understand how I need to impact my team. And so that was a big book, for me. You mentioned Dave Chase. I think his CEO guide to restoring the American dream was a kind of a turning point for me as well, to really understand healthcare a little bit deeper and understand how we can actually have an impact on that. Because I'm both a provider and an employer that's self-insured.
Mhm.
So I'm in a unique position where I'm both.
Right.
And to see the rise in my premiums with no explanation, but not get the rise in pay
Year after year, right?
for the same note. They'd use the same argument in both sides of the equation. I'm going, that makes no sense.
Right.
And just to understand more and more how we can get out there and help people directly. And there's a myriad of ways. And I applaud a lot of the therapists that are taking this into their own hands and directly contracting with individuals.
Mhm.
And I think there's an even greater opportunity to provide that relief to companies as well. And, for those that are looking, I mean, we have solutions and can help guide people along that path.
Cool. That's great. You're making me, I was remembering getting both those letters, back to back, a week apart. The evil providers are charging so much more, so we got to raise your premiums. Oh, we can't collect enough, so we have to slash what we're paying you. And yeah, you put them side by side from the same payer, and
Yeah.
Anyway, so what other thoughts? Anything you want to leave the owners with?
In spite of what we see, in spite of what we read, there's tremendous optimism to make a difference right now, if you're in the healthcare arena. And there are a lot of people that are not being talked about, that are doing direct contracting, that are helping to lower healthcare costs and the providers are actually making more money, but they're making more money by cutting out waste. And for the business owner out there, if you run a very efficient widget making shop, I can guarantee you that if you can apply some of that same logic to healthcare, and lower those costs, you're going to see a tremendous return. And not only that, you're going to help the very employees that are your greatest asset and help them be more comfortable and feel better, which is going to help them perform better. And if you're helping your employees perform better and feel better, what a great recruitment tool, what a great retention tool, what a great culture to be in, for an employee and an employer. Everybody's on the same page.
Right. No, that's awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great, Tim. I appreciate it. Really appreciate your time and the wisdom.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it's great to catch up with you, and hopefully that jogs a few items out for your listeners, and we can go make a difference out there.
Definitely. Thanks so much.
You bet. Thank you.